Hello, and welcome to the Don't Shop on Tuesdays Zoom chat. We're your hosts, Jacob and Barrie, joined today by Brian, co-founder of Goods Unite Us, an organization founded back in 2017 with an effort to unite consumers with their everyday purchases and show how those purchases can affect their politics. So thank you so much for joining us today, Brian. Could you give us a little bit more of the history of sort of Goods Unite Us and how you came about choosing this as an avenue for building political power and advocacy?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So my wife and I founded Goods Unite Us back in 2017, basically after the Trump got elected the first time. And we're both lawyers. My wife is a former progressive politician. She was on the county board in Madison. So we're very familiar with knocking on doors and begging people for money. And so both of us kind of had the same idea, which is there's this disconnect between corporate money and politics and what actually people know. And
Mm.
we both feel strongly that Citizens United, which was the Supreme Court's decision saying corporations are people and can fund politics, we both disagree with that, but we also are realists and understand that isn't going to change that rule anytime soon. And so what we realized was if you really want to change corporate behavior and you want to fight back against money in politics, you need to make it easy for the everyday person to understand what these companies are doing. And so that was sort of how Goods Unite Us was founded. Actually, the first thing we did was make a website where you could just buy Democratic or Republican goods, an affiliate website, but we were like before our time. And so what we quickly realized was people just wanted the data. So we
Mm.
launched Goods Unite Us as an app in 2017, gave it away for free, had a lot of users pretty quickly, found that people really wanted this data, but uh, it turns out it's hard to get in front of people. Full stop.
Mm.
Even if you have something amazing and lots of people want it, unless you got a lot of money and can put it on TV or put it wherever millions of people are going to see it, it's really hard to build
Mhm.
momentum. And so what we did basically is through 2019, we'd had a few 100,000 users, which is great, but not enough to pay for the app. And so we weren't making any money. And today we're still not really profitable, but we're trying to do something good for
Mm.
society. So it's not totally about profits, but anyway, the long story short is in 2020 we decided our data would also be very useful in finance, and
Mm.
because there's a whole bunch of people who care about their investments and the values of the companies from an investment perspective. So we launched DEMS, which is a index fund, which a lot of people don't know what that means. And that just means it's a fund like a mutual fund, except it trades on the stock market. So you can buy and sell it whenever you want, but it's just a big pool of companies that you're investing in. And so we basically created the entire S&P 500. We're trying to track it using only the Democratic companies from the S&P 500. So that launched in 2020 and has done pretty well and has gotten a lot of interest. And then, but meanwhile, we really haven't had we've had a lot of organic growth of the app, but it's been pretty steady
Mm.
until Trump got elected a second time. And then uh, it just blew up online. And we didn't have anything to do with that other than, you know, we'd been doing this for years and had built credibility and we had a lot of users, but nothing viral like that. And so since Trump got elected, we've had over 1 million users of our website and apps just in the last couple months. And if
That's
you go
fantastic.
on any social media platform and search Goods Unite Us, people are talking about it, people are sharing it. Our actual impact in the last couple months is definitely tens of millions of people have seen our data. And Now, whether all of them are actually doing anything about it is a different question, but we have finally, I think, broken through. It's a little bit unfortunate from our viewpoint that it took this long, is the way I'll
Right.
put it, for people to start realizing this is an important thing they should pay attention to. But we're really excited that people are doing that people are looking at it. Our TikTok now has almost 100,000 followers just from the last couple months. So I feel like people have finally caught on and understand the value of their dollar, and what the impact could be, both from purchasing and from investing.
Yeah, fantastic. So you sort of have a dual pronged approach right now around the consumer and the investor end, but both saying that since money is integral, it's completely sort of entwined with our political sort of electoral politics system, that we need to begin exerting combined united power on both of on those fronts and
Yeah, I
enable
mean,
to do
look,
that.
there's a couple things that the reasons why I think this is important. Number one, you can vote, but you can only vote once every couple of years. And then in between voting, there's a lot of people who want something to do to make a difference. And right now they're going on social media and yelling at each other. And while there's some benefits to that, we're giving you a much more concrete way you can make a difference. And I think 5 years ago, I could have stopped a random Democrat or random Republican in the street, asked them what their investments were, and looked at their clothes and told them they're supporting the other party. Uh,
Mm.
and that's still the case today. I bet if I look at most Democrats' 401ks, they own stock in ExxonMobil and AT&T and Home Depot and all these companies who are funding Republicans and doing things that
Mhm.
these people don't agree with. And they're probably wearing New Balance shoes, which are Republican or whatever. And so I think just making people aware of their personal impact and the impact of these companies can go a really long way. And I'm not sure if you're aware of our newest foray, which
Looks like,
is,
was it index aligned
yeah,
or?
so Index Align is still in the process of being built. So
Mm.
give us a little time because it's one of the coolest, I think, projects that we have going on. Now, we have to charge money for Index Align, frankly, because we don't charge money for anything.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to finance the company so we can keep the app free. But what Index Align does is it tracks the money from the company all the way to the politicians' voting records. So we can say, for example, and this is a real data point, Charles Schwab, in conjunction with its executives, has given 155 million, and 97% has gone to pro-life candidates, or 90 some percent has gone to candidates fighting environmental and renewable energy, environmental regulations and renewable energy spending. And so now what we found is a lot of people get weirded out by the politics of the red blue. They don't want to be red or blue. They just have specific issues that they care about. And so
Mhm.
now we're tying the data all the way to the issues in the voting records of the politicians. And so you can't really argue with it anymore. Before, people would say, well, they're Republican, but we don't know what all those people are doing with the money they got, and there are Republicans that support the environment or whatever. And so
Mhm.
now we're taking out that guesswork and basically saying, no, here's where that money's going, and here's what those people are voting on. Now, obviously, you can imagine the data mapping and work involved in putting that together is enormous,
Yeah.
but we're done with it. We have 16 issues already mapped, and 8 are up on the website, but the other 8 will be up any day now, including LGBTQ plus. We're gonna be adding 2 more issues, including diversity and DEI support, because that's become such a big issue, and then support for Israel, which is a really big issue to a lot of people. So that's really, I think, cool. And eventually, of course, we'd like to incorporate some of those into the app, but there's a lot of things we'd like to do, but until we can finance them or find people who will help us.
Yeah.
It's challenging, and we do have a lot of people volunteering too and just helping us,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
We
That's fantastic.
what attracted and Jacob and me, besides it's an excellent app, and we're going to have links below to send people there, is the recognition that you cannot separate money from politics. You cannot separate
Yeah.
money from policy. And, you know, we have an ally who's been trying to get money out of politics for a long time. And he said, once Texas executes a corporation, then we'll agree that, you know, that corporations are people, my friend. And so we are just so excited to talk to you, and the stranglehold, the literal stranglehold that money has on our politicians.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the easiest way to describe it to somebody on the street is you're allowed to give a maximum of a few $1,000s. These corporate executives are giving millions through PACs. Which ones do you think the politicians are going to pay attention to? And, you know, it's one of those things where basically corporate America and the executives of corporate America have an enormously outsized voice with our politicians compared to all of the citizens. And that's true on both sides of the aisle. And one of our original slogans that my wife came up with was reclaim your political voice. And that's what that meant. And so it really is, it's hard because a lot of people don't even think about it when they go shopping. It's a new idea. And I mean, it's not because we've been doing it since 2017, but for a lot of people, it's a totally new idea to think about, oh, when I go to a store and I pay somebody money for a candy bar or tennis shoes, some portion of that is going to go to a politician eventually. And I care about that. And so I can make decisions. Now, of course, if you are like the biggest fan of Adidas or like you don't necessarily have to change every purchasing decision. You certainly could, but there's a lot of low-hanging fruit like toilet paper or you know, all kinds of daily products where you're buying them all the time and the substitutability isn't that hard to switch, right? And so you can make a big difference, just switch 5 things. And if we get 10% of America to switch 5 things, you know how many companies would freak out and stop giving money? A lot of them, because the amount of money they give to politics is minute compared to their bottom line. And if you start impacting their bottom line or their stock price, they're going to have to seriously reevaluate their corporate giving policies and the policies of their executives. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is a company is allowed to keep its executives from donating money in politics. That is a practice that does happen at companies. So companies could say to their senior executives, you're only allowed to contribute like a normal citizen. And that's allowed. So there's a lot of progress to be made. I think we haven't, and since Citizens United, we haven't made any progress on the Supreme Court changing their position. So I think, you know, if Democrats or people who care about money in politics really want to do something, this is what you've got to do.
I think it's really clever of you, especially with the index aligned, to, you know, sort of step back and from the sort of partisanness of the politics and bring it back to issues. Because as we often bring up at Don't Shop on Tuesday, is that, you know, when you remove it from the partisan politics, when you remove it from saying this politician or that politician is supporting X, Y, or Z, or this party or that in fact there is actually a huge amount of alignment on many of these issues, on wanting to get money out of politics, on protecting reproductive rights, on raising the minimum wage, on taking action on the climate crisis, you know, and even when you ask, you know, there was a very interesting sort of study that happened right after this election, sort of showing that many Republican voters, when the policies were divorced from, you know, the politics, that there was actually a lot more alignment around policy choices, around the desire for what, someone like Kamala Harris in that case was particularly running against. And so there's that real value in stepping back and finding sort of the issues that we align with. One thing though that as I'm looking at the index align is that you see that a lot of these companies sort of very strategically are giving often quite substantially on both sides of an issue. And
Yep.
so how do you find that people are sort of reacting to that? And do you think that that speaks maybe to the sort of even deeper issue of just the presence of this money in the politics has a distortionary sort of effect on how on the whole process?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, because of been doing this data for a while, I actually can give you some rough numbers. So of the 500 largest US companies, about 25% are very heavy Dem, about 25% are very heavy Republican, about 25% give evenly, and then the other 25% either don't give or give in pretty small amounts and aren't specifically, making a huge difference. We don't think, I mean, again, we're against money in politics, and that is really what the companies stands on. So the companies that are giving, that's what Goods Unite Us stands for. And so the companies out there that are giving a lot of money to both sides, we don't think that's okay either. And so, but again, what we're doing is just providing transparency. We're trying to make it easy for people, all people, to understand where the money is going and how that money is impacting society. And we actually track over, with the new update, over $3 billion with a B of money coming from publicly traded companies. This is on index aligned to politicians. And that's a mind-blowing number. This is only 1,700 US publicly traded companies are giving $3 billion. Think about all the private companies which are on our app, or all the other companies out there. And so it's one of we're not exactly sure how people are going to use this data and in what fashion, but what we do know is that it's better for the world to have the data than not have it. And so that's kind of our position on it.
I'm very lucky. I live in a city with a lot of different ethnic and diversity, and it's just easier to go to a small business or restaurant where the people.
Yeah.
And absolutely use your app all day long, but if you go into the community and you support the community, I mean, that's the second part of our ask is shop local 6 days a week. I mean, fine.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather, there's farmers markets, there's art co-ops, there's just so many ways that you can divorce yourself from the corporations. As you said, even if they're hedging their bets, they shouldn't be betting at all.
Yeah, well, I think certainly we're for shopping local. But it turns out sometimes you shop local and the local people who own those businesses are pretty wealthy and they're giving a lot of money. And so just being local doesn't necessarily fix the problem. I can think of there's a grocery store in my hometown of Madison that is a local grocery store, but I know the owner is a very big Republican and sends a lot of money to Republicans. So I wish it were as easy as just go outside and find some mom and pop store. But I think, obviously both things are important. Again, we're just sort of providing a suite of options. And so now you could shop local and you can avoid, Republican or Democrat or whatever you want. In my dream, we would be big enough that we could really add a lot more companies. And we're trying to do that, but we've received hundreds of thousands of requests to add new companies in our app. And of course, we're doing the best we can, but we're not Google. So,
Brian, can I ask you, how does, one of the major phenomena here, and we often talk about, a company like Nestle, right? Where
Mhm.
it's a big, huge conglomerate of an enormous number of disparate brands and, services and products that many people probably have no idea are even associated with that sort of with that ultimate parent company. Um, how does Goods Unite Us or Index Align sort of deal with these sort of um, these multi conglomerate corporate entities? Do you treat them separately? Do you sort of funnel back up to the parent
Yeah,
company? And how
so
does
that's
that?
actually one of our biggest value adds. So a lot of people, say, how are you different than Open Secrets? And really, Open Secrets is great. We love what they're doing, but they're doing something pretty significantly different than we are. We're focused on solely making it easy for a consumer or investor. They are, much more policy based, news, trying to get news, etc. But to answer your question, what we do is we actually figure out which companies own which companies, aggregate it all, and then give you one score for the brand level. And so that is really, you can't. So for example, and I haven't been on Open Secrets in the last couple of weeks or months, so I'm not positive about this, but it used to be that if you went on Open Secrets and searched for Taco Bell, you would see different numbers than if you search for Yum Brands. Well, Yum Brands owns Taco Bell. And so what we have tried to do, and you can imagine the amount of data this is, and we do the best we can. Companies buy companies every day, and so we have to readjust all the time. But we literally try to give everything in the same corporate entity the same score, so that when you're doing business with some brand that Nestle owns, we're considering all of the political contributions of Nestle and all the subsidiaries of Nestle all at once. Because let's be honest, you don't want to, if you're a Democrat, you don't want to buy from a brand that doesn't give, that's owned by some big conglomerate that is giving a lot to Republicans and vice versa. And so that's really our biggest value add, honestly, is the brand level, the aggregating the corporate level, and just trying to make it as simple as possible for the everyday consumer to spend money according to their politics.
You made it interesting. Well, your entire presentation is interesting, but you made a comment earlier on that if just a certain number of people switch out 5 different products and the aggregate effect. And I think what your organization and what you're doing has in common with we're doing is that we don't know the extent of the effect that we're having.
Yeah.
That we provide the tool, and we are finding out about Don't Shop on Tuesday anecdotally that someone in Minnesota, who knew someone who knew someone, and it's so easy. And one of our allies is a professor, and he told us that the corporations will know before us.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that they will say, "Uh-oh," something.
And we have seen that. So we have gotten cease and desist letters from big companies who, like, this was a few years ago, but you can Google it. Forbes wrote an article about it. But like Chico's brand got really mad at us because they were Republican, because a prior CEO had given a lot of money to Trump, who was gone. And everybody, there were so many people talking about Chico's being Republican that we clogged their call center. And so they had some New York firm send us a cease and desist. And of course, I don't think they knew that we were lawyers before they did that. And so then I called them back and was like, you can't, we're allowed to make public data. So, which to me though, I'm not trying to bash Chico's, because to me, that's telling me that we're doing something right.
Right.
This is having an impact. Companies are talking about it. And we have seen, again, it's anecdotal, we can't measure it, but we have definitely seen the reception today talking to companies about politics is dramatically different than in 2018. In 2018, every company was like, we don't talk about politics, we don't do politics, we don't. And now they're kind of being forced to think about it, talk about it, and that's the whole point of this.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic in terms of, yeah, I think one of the things that really has been missing for a long time from sort of our from efforts around citizens to sort of organize politically and build power is that sort of recognition that you need, that many of the powers that be are discussing things through and viewing things through an economic lens, and you need to be able to speak that language when you're discussing these things, if you're not if you're going to be heard and be able to have any sort of influence in the space.
Yeah, 100%. Money talks on both sides of the aisle, and you might not like that, but you can't ignore it if you want to make a difference. And that's kind of, you know, what we saw early was a lot back when we launched was Democrats were almost unanimously against Citizens United. Were saying they want to change it. We're trying to change it, but they can't change the court, even if they, and I mean, not quickly. And so we sort of thought, well, there's a much better way to fight back. We're going to turn Citizens United on its head. And, you know, maybe if the companies don't like it, maybe they don't want to be people. And so we'll find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this in terms of putting the pressure back on, you know, sort of businesses and as an activity to raise consciousness as well. You know, that part of it is sort of providing that space for people to have the tools to change you know, behavior and let that ripple outward. We're in a new, you know, I don't know if Goods United or Index Align or Demsy, any of the, I don't know what the umbrella, maybe it's all under
It's
Goods
all
Unite
under
Us.
Goods. It's all Goods Unite Us.
It's all under Goods. Um, thoughts on, you know, or is there any change in strategy, or is there any, you know, how does the most recent sort of political environment, how have you been finding that has affected your work? Has it regalvanized people? Are, you know,
I
people
mean,
feeling
Trump
hopeless
getting
about this?
elected just poured an enormous amount of fuel on the fire. And it wasn't really Trump. It was, I think, a lot of influencers came to the same conclusion that we came to years ago, which was we need something to do to fight back. And this is a really good way to do it. And so almost immediately we saw on every social media platform, the people who had been using our app talking about it, showing slides. And so like go on TikTok and search Goods Unite Us, and there's dozens of influencers that I don't even know, I've never met, that are just saying, go download the app, boycott these brands or these brands. And so we're really seeing it becoming a movement, which is really the only way this is going to work. Now, I'm worried because I've seen Democrats and Republicans, but especially Democrats, get riled up and then lose interest. And so we'll see if they'll, you know, all the people who are out there shopping according to their politics now will continue to do so. But it's certainly been a huge swell just since November.
Do you have, speaking of that, do you have any sense of people's, you know, how well people sort of maintain or how durable some of these changes that people are experiencing are, you know, in terms of
yeah, I mean, we have super users and we've had them since 2017. So there are a lot of people who just refuse to buy anything from the other party. And then we have a lot of people who use it for big purchasing items, surprisingly cars. We get a lot of emails from people who bought, you know, a Mazda instead of a Toyota or whatever, because of our app. And so it's really hard to tell. What I can tell you is, just from the data going back to 2017, we keep some users and they use it all the, like forever. They continue to use it. How high a percent that is yet to be seen of all the new people who are using it, excited about it, talking about it. But again, there's two things here. It's not just use it, because that's obviously going to affect the company's bottom line. They're going to pay attention, but the companies also have to be noticing the TikTok videos with millions of views that are bashing their companies because of our data. And so there's, there's sort of
Right.
two ways to skin the cat here, which is a terrible saying. I don't know why that's a saying, but
My cat
Yeah.
just ran out of the room, so I'm just.
oh yeah, I have cats too. I actually have to go because I have another call, but
Yeah,
I'm happy to follow up again, chat more.
absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time, Brian, and all of the work that you're doing at Goods Unite Us, at Index Align, at DEMS, to bring consumers, to bring Americans sort of into a more conscious state around how their consumer purchases and their purchasing power in the dollar can affect political action. We need that sort of organizing and consciousness more than ever. So thank you so much for joining us. And to all of you, thank you for watching. And until next time, don't shop on Tuesday.